Hello, this is Daily Dharma. My name's Dina. Thanks so much for joining. Come on in, take a seat by the fire, set the tone and the vibe to get the best message for the highest good in your life. Today in the pre-shuffle, I wanted to just show you how the cards were presenting themselves to me with the initial impression. The message that I was getting is very soon there's going to be a shift in the way that you spend your time. Spending your time in a more soul nourishing, heart based way, whether it's a hobby, a new friend group, a new association, something where you're putting energy into something very meaningful and fulfilling for yourself and being rewarded or fulfilled through that. So here's this big change, and the change seems incremental at first, but then I do believe when we have the eclipse, there's going to be a shift where things will be, for some, maybe not all, shifting in such a way, there's such preparedness in our journey that the choice will have to be made. Do I put more of my efforts and investment towards this thing that's emerging, or do I continue to keep it on the side? I remember when I was at the tail end of my working in an office phase of my life, so to speak, it became such an interference to the way that my channel had become so creatively inspired, and it was like this torrential force coming through, and that was one of the most creatively inspired times of my life, and I couldn't imagine spending any more time there at the office where I felt like my channel was interfering with the benefit of this thing that I had contracted to spend my time doing. And so I shifted the way that I was operating. So maybe for some of you, this is where there's that shift of moving away from something tried and true to invest in this new thing because it seems promising. It seems to be something earth-based, either material, building, something that is an actual institution, or doing something physical. Like for myself, we're doing quite a bit of homesteading and physical toiling with the actual literal earth, soil, seed, water, using the elements to produce nourishment. Divine Feminine, using those energies to conceive of something quite substantial. So this emergence of the cosmic flower to me is like if you've listened to other times where that has come up, I see that as a representation of the top-down view of the double helix DNA. And I guess what I mean by that is that we're talking about the potential that we have as soul in body by spending our time remembering how to effectively, efficiently, and quite powerfully harness, align, and utilize those energies to shift and change the world around us. Then we become the master with all types of tools and resources. That reminds me, in the pre-shuffle remembrance, we'll get back to that one. For the Kali deck, I really enjoyed this one. Oh, and I see what's under it too. Krishnu, number 41, the two-headed masculine, 4 arms is shown underneath this. But Mahakali showed herself, and what I was seeing with this is all of the various tools that she's developed to enable her to be able to handle any circumstance. Or maybe you've gotten your life set up in such a way that to take a risk at this point isn't going to create any undue strife or struggle or toil that isn't something that you can handle. It looks like you've gotten yourself all set up with all of the resources at the ready. What number is this? Number 16. It's the number of the tower in the tarot. So something quite substantial is perhaps pushing us forward here. But to me, this is about really standing in our power and moving forward with with all of our um, self that aligned and shine, coming out with all of your power. It says her magnificence steadies the anxious mind and reassures the heart of the empowering grace that arises through trust in her. That's a mouthful, isn't it? So she's trying to say, be still and know. The stillness card was also coming up in the pre shuffle. Attempting to fathom the wisdom behind the workings of the Divine Mother would be like trying to cram the entire ocean into a teacup. Such wisdom is vast and our perspective is limited, yet we don't need to understand divine will to benefit from it. Better to allow her creativity, resourcefulness, and unlimited vision to take effect in our lives, bringing us every grace necessary for our blessed fulfillment. So trusting in the process, remembering that this is what we're here to kind of bring into fruition. It's something that we've envisioned and been working through, and it seems as though it's a culmination of previous, I want to even say incarnations, previous, maybe not even previous is perhaps the wrong word because of how relative and elusive time actually is. What I want to say is that the entire calling is somewhat beyond, well, it's very much beyond us and what we are dealing with in the human dimension. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. So this remembrance card says it supports our memory of everything that we've gone through as a soul in body, providing us with valuable information and tools to flow gracefully with and in this life. So it's these tools here that we're talking about, and whether it comes in with us, some of those South Node things, like some people were just born being good or interested in math, other people's in geography and in history. And each one of these things, as mundane as it might appear, there's some magic in that by putting together math with sound. For instance, math is quite a sacred language in its own right, that is it's a language we created to map and quantify shifts and changes in evolution, in a way, in vibrational resonance, in power, strength. It's a measuring tool. And so is history. History can be a measuring tool. Look at ley lines if you're interested and drawn to this. It kind of maps out different things, like significant intense events throughout history can be mapped and shown to happen in a waveform. And fault lines in the earth, earthquake, the tectonic plates, there's something here about the moving and shaping of the earth, the moving and shaping of the self, that is showing itself to us. And this tangent brought to you by the multiple tools that we come in with and overlook. Some of those South Node things that we come in being good at or interested in that seem extraneous can be applied to what you're doing now and what you're being called to birth. It's like we were born being good at certain things, so that would be our automatic tool, and then we learn other good, bad, and ugly tools for coping and being able to be the pilgrim on our journey, for instance, here. Let's move on. Okay, first of the 10 wisdom goddesses, the Mahavidyas, is the 10-armed Mahakali. She is laden with her sacred weapons. Many arms and weapons, perhaps some of those coping mechanisms, symbolize the capacity of the Divine Mother to work beyond human limitations. The contrast is not intended to diminish the dignity of our humanity. Humans have a tremendous capacity for heroism kindness, love, grace, and generosity. Rather, it's an encouragement to engage with the divine with perfect trust in our hearts. Multiple weapons represent multiple creative powers to conquer multiple issues. More than two arms indicates that divine workings are not limited by our human perspectives or capacities. This is reassuring. The divine can accomplish works beyond what would be possible through human effort alone. And it's by that, the divine working through us, by us being aligned with what's true, right, and remarkable, inspiring about ourselves, then we are shining that divinity through our, however flawed perspectives and human foibles. What a fun word that is. And despite what could be right, wrong, or indifferent about each individual, when we align with the highest truth that we can, we come into alignment with divine workings to work through us. And sometimes there have been times where I have witnessed myself being compelled to follow the advice of spirit for something that seemed not in the benefit or interest of whatever. But then I see how either that tough love situation or my refusal to assist in some manner was actually in divine order. And you can use this to explain things like discontinuing enabling circumstances, or this came up before, the way that particularly the parents and the authority figures, teachers, how other people have modeled the use of their authority, power, and their need to control, or their feelings of being out of control, or the evidence and behaviors that showed them to be somewhat unstable or very much unstable. This unpredictable nature of others led us to maneuver and cope. And then we learn, how are we accommodating and how are we becoming our own inner authority? Remembering circumstances reminds us to differentiate and to discern how best to use the weapon. And it's not always the best act to be in a tough love situation. Sometimes it's best to even support those that are in a victimized circumstance. We don't want to necessarily lower their awareness, but sometimes angering another individual gets them moving. Sometimes soothing somebody who's in a self-pity mode of operation can help them to feel recognized and supported enough that they're like, well, now I feel pitied. I'm going to go out and do something more empowering. Perhaps. Just some ideas. Mahakali means the great Kali. She's known as the guardian of the cosmic order and the one who selects the timing for all unfoldment. Nothing can be accomplished without the necessary preparation and not before it's the right time for it. So let me just zip through here and see if there's anything else worth. Trust that things are unfolding and that Spirit's working through you to assist you. And try not to force or to dominate or control. There's something about the process of willing surrender and being able to move with the currents instead of just being dead weight floating on the current with that expectation and entitlement. But also, when the flow shows us that it's going over here into this good direction, if we paddle, then we're going to use the divine flow in the appropriate manner to get there the most efficient way possible with our lessons and otherwise. Trust that the universe is your ally, and and that we can only know what we need, but that it's essential that we do not get lost in psychological misunderstandings or contemplation. It just creates psychological clutter. So, Krishna, let's not go through him today. I want to get into more of these code cards. Under remembrance, we have soul time, root chakra, sacral chakra, prosperity. So, our ability to feel abundant here perhaps is on on display. So the tools versus this, I'm sensing defensiveness. We're talking about weapons versus tools, and remembrance brings up all of the experiences, and whether we're seeing the need for defensiveness and validation and power dynamics, or whether we're seeing the universe as collaborating with us, perhaps to aggravate us. It's not the individual that made us mad, it's not the individual that made us sad. These feelings arise not because of things that people force upon us, it's things that other people do can invoke a response. But then what do we do with that? We can be disappointed in somebody's lower actions without making it become an extreme sadness. I don't know where I'm going with this. Somebody is still being controlled by an emotional response here, whether it's from long ago, something that can't even be remembered perhaps, or something conditioned. I know recently with the Pluto movement with Mars, Mercury, and Venus all over there, I have a very powerful Pluto placement in my chart. And for me, this is very much coming across as a feeling of irritability of gender roles and stereotypes and the tensions that arise between the energies at play. And this doesn't have to be genders, it can be just that yin and yang in ourselves, in the environment, in the social platforms. And there's a reason it's aggravating me, and there's a reason why things that other people are doing for their own process are affecting me. And there's an ego element that says, well, if I could control that response, if I could just convince them why they're making me uncomfortable, then I will feel righteous and justified. But there's something else making me uncomfortable. It's the discomfort with these ideas of the injustices of my own life somehow belonging to something uh, that keeps being evidenced by the individuals in my life. And it's a process that I'm working through, that we are working through. It's a perception. And it doesn't help a whole lot to know that that's what it is, right? So there's a belief structure that's being modified, altered. The frequency of belief supports our sense of self-worth based on our gifts and our talents and a strong connection to source. So that when we can see that any trigger, anything that's happening is for us and not against us, then the perception of are these stepping stones? When we're in deep water and somebody's throwing stones at us, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if we can let the stones accumulate, they become a stepping stone, right? That's a terrible example. I don't know why some things come out. So the weapons that we are thinking that they're defensive tools and weapons, but the weapons become the tools that are supporting this shift here. Realization. Yeah, so the difference between what is perceived and what is real, and what do we make a story out? The perceptions, the things that we think of, like, oh, well, this person did this thing to me. We perceived that. So then that belief comes into the chakra centers, into the core of ourselves, and creates a story about, well, why would somebody do something malicious, rotten, or uncaring, or unthoughtful towards me, it must be because either they're bad, I'm bad, unworthy, right? There's just to simplify, it can hit us many different ways, but there's a belief that is shifted here, a realization that others aren't pushing us into the box, that they have their own box, right? We don't need to crawl in with them. So alchemy keeps showing itself. Integration. Yeah, being able to integrate these experiences into the core in the proper way is the way that we that we work with our alchemy in a positive way. I need a drink. So, excuse me. So, the perceptions that we hold, like I said, as they come into the body, they can catalyze different responses, whether this is in a supported, buffered sense of self or a victimized, reduced sense of self. The feelings emerge from the friction inside between our self-belief and our hopes, fears, and beliefs, the perceptions, beliefs. And integrating the good and the bad and being able to not take things so personally is the way that we can shift this. Like, this individual said something harsh to me, perhaps because of either a state of being that they're in, they're moody, they're upset, or blaming, externalizing things, or maybe that's this person's normal thing and it's no different than how they speak to themselves or others. We can look at how these things don't belong to us, and then in knowing that about them, we know more about ourselves, and we can then witness, okay, this individual is miserable, and just be like, oh, sounds like you're having a rough morning, or whatever we need to say, you know. The frequency of integration supports our embrace of every aspect of ourselves, allowing what we perceive as positive and what we perceive as negative to harmonize in a balanced symphony of life. So symphony keeps coming to the fore as well. I'm going to get one more card here. Fertility. Fertility's been out quite a bit recently. So as this pertains to something big coming into our life, something we're probably going to spend a good deal of time participating in order for this to be the miraculous breakthrough and happy endeavor that it has the potential to be, we need to surpass a self-imposed limitation that says, all of the things we've been talking about, being able to separate our anxieties and fears and defensiveness into how those things help us and inspire us to do better. Like when somebody makes us angry, how does that motivate us to do better? Or when somebody tries to motivate us by criticizing, how can we not keep repressing and being upset and saddened by that and say in the moment, I understand you're trying to motivate me, but that kind of stuff just destroys my sense of motivation. So if you could just relax a little bit, I'm doing the best I can. Something where there's our voice is an advocate of our choice and our truth, and our emotional upsurge is able to be in that slow release and equalized exchange, balanced, open exchange with the environment, with those individuals around us, when we can show up fully for our needs in the moment. But when we repress, there's this pressurized, and then the trigger makes us feel like we're going to explode because there's too much stuffed down on the inside. We're creating that negative pressure, which is a ticking time bomb. Brilliant. Every time I see this card, I have to say that. Hope you don't mind. Brilliance is an incredible card to me. It shows this shape-shifting magician influence, and he looks a little scary at first glance because he walks with such unspoken power. It emanates from his being, and it's intimidated as can be. And so with the heightened illuminated beings that are pressurized on the inside, there's a lot of power, right? The time bomb is quite powerful. And when we can engage in that slow release and that equal exchange with our environment, we see that our brilliance is shared and appreciated and reflected back. Instead of hiding things, then if things are all hidden, of course you'll be overlooked. So letting your brilliance show bit by bit, stretching out of that comfort or discomfort zone to be seen for your softness, your beauty, your light, your hobbies. Maybe there's more of a superficial group, like association of time and place, such as a workplace or hobby where there's individuals that you're not real close with, just superficial acquaintances. And by being able to be more of yourself and say, hey, well, this is something I do on the side as just kind of an honest comment in relation, all of a sudden your persona and your person becomes more human. I heard my boyfriend explain something like that himself after something last night. Someone was responding to him in a specific manner again and again while sparring, and he was taking it through his assumptions. And then the following training period, this individual's like, oh, when you do this, this is the thing that I try to do to blah, blah, blah. But when you do this in response to this thing that I do, that doesn't have an effect on me. You should try this other thing because that I'm not as strong at. And so by explaining ourselves and helping other individuals to see us in a new way, it really helps to, instead of feeling misunderstood and like there's a misalignment, then we can exchange information instead of becoming pressurized. Magnetism, I love it. So yeah, there's something I want to, oh yeah, I love this one on the bottom. Where was it? This one is Art of War, and the pre-shuffle came out. Keep your fights short. Sun Tzu's advice is that your objective should be to win the war, not keep winning the small battles. It's great advice, especially for couples. Say your piece politely and with respect. Listen to theirs in the same manner, then move towards peace. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Deal with it then and there, and then leave it behind you. And so in these exchanges, there's a reason why we're engaging. There's a reason for the mirror. And when we store perceived offenses, it becomes a belief pattern and magnetizes an argument. When we can say our thing in the moment and then just say, okay, well, that's been acknowledged. Now we can move beyond that. Not holding on to our points is not holding on to those grievances and making more out of them. Look at this beautiful card at the bottom, center, saying centered in our heightened awareness. And there's confirmation of our alchemy. So I'm about to run out of time here, so I think that we'll end it there. It looks like the message is pretty obvious. We have something incredible at play within ourselves that's ready to be birthed. There's this card of ready but waiting. The opportunity is ready. It's already been discussed behind the scenes. There's a lot of awareness of something coming into being that you are shifting and changing, and this is creating so many opportunities. So make sure to stay in your center, in your health and healing, um, utilizing the tools that people hand you, even if that's a bucket of injustice, and being able to sort through that perception of injustice to be able to seek for your inner truth and say, okay, what does my need in this situation amount to? How can I use my voice to create my choice and to shift and change the whole so that everybody is still served, but that my creative brilliance is not sacrificed unnecessarily. So, yes, karma is on your side was telling me basically that it's not all about the injustice. It's that the things that come up karmically are there to benefit us. And there isn't a soul on the planet who doesn't crave your approval. So while you're out there possibly needing that validation, so are the people that you think are underestimating or overlooking you. So perhaps you're intimidating them and they're trying to maybe gain your approval at the same time. So witness your power and use it gently. So keep yourself mindful, remember yourself, and take care of you. We'll see you again soon. Thanks, guys.